You're such a f***ing child.
Into the cockpit.
All right, say your name.
Michael Lear.
Angela Darling.
Roberto Rangel.
I can hear all of you. All right. I want to start out with a quote. You guys cool with it?
Sure.
And then we'll go right into introductions. But I want this quote to be kind of the theme of today's episode.
Sure.
So the quote's by, well, I guess it's not by, but it's out of a book by Rick Rubin. If no one knows who Rick Rubin is, he's pretty much the audio engineer behind every song you've ever heard. From Tom Petty to Adele to Beastie Boys, he was behind them. So, all right, the quote reads, "Art creates a profound connection between the artist and the audience. Through that connection, both can heal." So today we're talking about the Trager approach and healing other individuals. And I just kind of want to keep a theme about how helping others has helped you guys. So I want to get into some brief introductions. Roberto, you want to kick it off?
Yeah, so my name is Roberto. I retired November 13, 2021 with 15 years of service. U.S. Army, I was a mechanic. It was great. My story started a long time ago. I originally joined the Army. I had 96 jumps with the 82nd Airborne Division.
96 jumps.
96 jumps.
Jeez,
so knees are jacked. Let's see. I ended up going to Fort Polk with 1st Infantry Division. And then after that, I got blown up in 2010 in Iraq. Second deployment. The IED didn't penetrate the hull of our MRAP. But when we landed, I had full battle rat on as a spinal compression. I actually just took x-rays in October. It's crazy. So, but yeah, the Army said I'd be in a wheelchair by the time I was 35 if I didn't have surgery. I chose not to. I did everything: traction, acupuncture, occupational therapy, nothing helped. Just crippling back pain. There's a moment where my daughter was waking up on the couch and I was heating up her bottle and something slipped and I was just paralyzed. Could not move. So after that, I ended up switching over to the reserves and got stationed at Fort Carson and just ran out the rest of my career there. Multiple deployments. So pretty much my story with Trager was I was not in a good place. I was going through my divorce. My kids didn't take it as good as any kids ever would. There's a lot of issues. I had moved up to the Springs at a friend's house that was deployed, and I was checked out. I was drinking, wasn't sleeping, horrible mentally. I was just out. I was a week away from suicide, and I had a friend call me, and he says, "Hey, I have this person that you need to meet. She's building a clinic for veterans." And I was like, well, what do I need to do with, why? And he's like, no, seriously, she's doing good things. So I remember I went to the clinic and I met Angela and, we started, I was like, all right, fine. If I'm done, I'm going to do one last good thing. Right. So I had everything ready and over time we just kept talking and talking and talking. And
when you say you had everything ready, what are you referring to?
So suicide, okay. I had written letters to my kids. I had all the insurance paperwork on the table. I was done. And then I end up finding this clinic. So we're doing the build out. Angela says, "Hey, I want to give you a massage to say thank you for your help." And I was like, "Oh no, don't worry about it." She goes, "Get on the table." And that time, nothing much happened. The first time that I got him. And it kind of makes me mad because as people walk through, when they get off the table, they walk out of the room and they're like, "Oh my God, I feel so good." And I'm like, shut up. There's just this.
Your smilings make me uncomfortable.
Yeah, I'm like, you're an asshole. Yeah. I didn't get that the first time.
Right.
But yeah, so we keep building out. She goes to give me a second massage. And that was the one that kind of hit. I got off the table and I remember I was emotional. I mean, naturally, because, everything that's going on. But I remember I walked out and she's like, "How do you feel?" And I was like, tired. Right? That was the only word that I could describe it. After finding this work, I now know why. And then, so we're still doing the build out. And then she gets this chair, right? She says, "Oh my gosh, the PMF's here." And I'm like, "What is it?" And she goes, it's involuntary cellular workout. This is going to get your cells where they need to be. And I was like, the hell are you talking about?
What are you talking
What
about?
are you talking about?
We're about to
She
find
says-
out, though.
So yeah, so I sit in this chair for like an hour and a half, and it's a kick.
Yeah.
Like it what it does well. And so I remember I went back to my friend's house. I like made a steak, started drinking whiskey, started watching TV, my normal routines. I fell asleep. I went 5 hours, no nightmare. Just woke up and I was like, whoa, like what happened? So I get back to the clinic the next day and she's like, so how do you feel? And I'm like, stop, hold on. It's like something happened, but I want to verify.
Mm-hmm.
So we go through and it's simple stuff. We're painting, we're spackling, nothing strenuous like deployments or military. Like, so there wasn't anything that was exhausting. It was just normal movements, wear and tear, whatever. So I sit in the chair for another hour and a half, go back, make dinner, start drinking, start to watch TV, and I fall asleep. 5 hours, woke up, no nightmares. Get back to the clinic, and she's like, so how? I'm like, stop. I don't know what you're doing, but you're ruining my life. And she's like, what are you talking about? I was like, I slept 10 hours in the last 2 days. She goes, that's awesome. And I'm like, stop it. No, you're ruining my productivity is tanking. I'm a season behind on my show. Like, I'm like literally, cause it's all me at this point.
Yeah.
So no, after that, we had our first massage September 8th, 2022. And yeah. And so like, it was cool. The patients walked in, everyone's military, everyone's a veteran. And we just started talking. That's when I found my purpose.
Mm-hmm.
When you leave the military, there's this transition of where do I fit? What do I do? Where do I belong? And for me, it was, okay, I hit rock bottom all at once, divorce, kids villainizing everything, not taking it so well, behavioral health falling through the cracks, and then you lose sense of self. So at that point, I was like, all right, I could help people find who they are again. So no, ever since that day, I don't think I've ever not been at the clinic.
Mm-hmm.
Like it's our new purpose. We love it. It makes it nice. I love that because of my trials and tribulations with the VA, I know how to navigate it more than most.
Mm-hmm.
So all the secrets that I know, I get to tell people like, hey, this is what the battle that you have in front of you. This is what you can do. This is what I did. And this is what worked for me. And it doesn't work for everyone, right? We're all different. But at the same time, it's a general formula that's pretty easy to navigate.
Mm-hmm.
So we have the highest, return of patients. We have everyone wants to come back. Usually we can't keep enough time on the schedule. So like right now we're actively looking for new placements and new massage therapists. Life's going pretty good.
Yeah.
What this chair has done has allowed me to stay mobile even with my injuries. So like when I say I did x-rays a month and a half ago, and it's the worst back that I think I've ever seen. Like every vertebrae is jacked. All the disc is gone. Like it's incredible to know that I could still be as mobile as I am, all because of Trager and the PMF.
Well, I appreciate you telling your story. I know it's not easy to talk about suicide, things of that nature, but I can feel that you're doing it in hopes to help others. And that's the whole point of this podcast. So I appreciate you coming on. I appreciate you telling your story. And you're just kind of the definition of what hope feels like, looks like. So,
and I think that's one of the things, though, is, when we separate out of the military, whether we retire, just let our contract run out or anything else, it becomes a new battle with the VA.
mm-hmm.
And my problem was the VA started giving me 30 pills a day, antidepressants, neurostabilizers or mood stabilizers, everything under the sun. And when I took them, like the VA wanted me to, I was a zombie. I had no emotion. I wasn't laughing. I wasn't enjoying. I was just simply coasting through life.
Right.
One of the things that I wish the VA would do would start more on this path, right? Let's go ahead and start with chiropractor, massage therapy, behavioral health, and then we'll fill in the gaps after we get the holistic side or the natural side.
Mm-hmm.
So like it's a shame that you walk in and they're so easy to throw every single pill at you,
Mm-hmm.
and then they don't offer you massage therapy
Right,
or
yeah.
chiropractic care or acupuncture. So I mean, it's almost like they're setting us up for failure before we walk in the door.
Yeah, I agree. And I think that's kind of all of our mission is to get the VA on board with this type of medicine, this holistic approach to healing. With that, Angela, let's get nerdy.
Let's get nerdy.
Yeah. Tell me a little bit, and meeting Roberto, starting this clinic, because you're the owner of Solvum, right?
Yeah.
Okay. So just a little brief introduction.
Okay. So I love that you read that quote because that just totally feeds
Right.
into my background. It was actually the reason I got into massage therapy and then trailed down the pathway of the Trager approach was both for my healing and a way for me to artistically express with my hands. But I'm a type A personality, so I'm always like rushing from point A to point B. Everything's just kind of urgent. And I needed something that would force me to slow down.
Yeah.
And so like there's something magical that happens whenever I, go into a room and I'm trying to create a space of calm and ease for somebody else. It forces me to do that too and to find that within myself. And then Trager is based off of a self-care model.
Right.
So if I can't find the feeling of ease, of freedom, of lightness in my own body, I'm not able to convey that to my client's body. So it's really, really important that I do the work for myself, that I have this down for myself, and then it enables me to offer that to other people. And I know one of the issues that oftentimes happens with people that have maybe a trauma background or healers in general is we tend to be really great at neglecting ourselves. So this definitely helps me to kind of make sure that I'm not just taking care of other people, and
Right.
I've got myself centered, and I can feel it in my work. If I'm off my work quality, I don't think my clients notice it quite as much, but I definitely can tell. I'm
Right.
like, okay, I need to bring myself back to it.
So
Yeah.
tell me about Solvum, because that's the clinic here, the one Roberto was referring to. Tell me about how you went from, a background in massage to opening Solvum.
So it's kind of funny, actually. I transitioned from being a private investigator
Oh, okay.
to a massage therapist.
Do I want to ask that transition? That's quite the change of pace.
I know, it kind of seems like it. But like I got really burnt out with investigations, and I was doing a lot of work in family law. It was really high intensity work. And I was reassessing my life. I knew that in order to recover from burnout, I needed to be, I didn't necessarily need to slow down, but I needed to be doing something that filled my cup.
Different purpose. Yeah.
More, yeah. And so I was looking back and getting to know myself a little bit more, and I realized that I was sitting there on surveillances, just reading medical studies for the fun of it. And at that point of my life, like there's no meaningful application about this. Like I would sit there and do that, and I'm like, why do I do this? So when I was kind of restructuring my life, I realized that, massage would be a way that I could dip my toe into the medical field in a way that was really meaningful. And, maybe some of all the stuff I've been dabbling in for what seemed like no reason might be able to come out to be useful. With Solvum, I started out working at another chiropractic clinic. That they were some of the first people to get in with the VA. And I could see different ways that things needed to be done better. And the person that I was working for at the time, he just wasn't in a position to be able to do that in his life at the time. So I wanted to be able to treat and offer my clients more than what was available to them at the time. And that included things that might be able to treat things like traumatic brain injury, and to be able to find ways to extend the massages to an hour and throw in all the modalities that I wanted to and be able to do what I wanted to do. And when I met Roberto, I could just see that he was the missing piece, because as much as I am great at offering a safe space, I don't have a military background. And there's something about having a brother that's there that has your back that really takes that to the next level.
Yeah, absolutely. So did the Solvum clinic start out as a Trager practice?
It didn't. So
Okay.
when I first conceptualized the Solvum clinic, I was actually living in Oklahoma at the time, and I didn't even know that the VA covered massage
Okay.
therapy.
Which a lot of people probably don't. So
Yeah, it's totally. I learned about it when I landed in.
Yeah.
I was like, what?
Yeah.
It was really weird because I had gotten this job, and the person I was interviewing with was like, hey, and by the way, you're going to be working with veterans.
Mhm.
And it was crazy because I had already scheduled my training for like a couple weeks after that to go learn the Traeger approach. So it kind of all happened at once. And then when I started working on people, everybody was coming in, and I was like, oh man, I can't not do Traeger. And my results were so good,
Right.
even though I was kind of new in the Traeger work. And I wouldn't say like bad at it, but not as skilled as I am now, but I was still getting just these profound results that I felt like it was like medically neglectful for me not to
For
do
sure.
the work.
Yeah.
You know?
It's like you find something that works, you can't not do it now.
Yeah.
Well,
Yeah.
and to kind of go off of that though, the reason why like for me Traeger does so well is it calms the nervous system, right? So she taps into the parasympathetic nervous system, which the military teaches us how to be up, on, hypervigilance, situational awareness, everything that we're trained. We go in and we can't have our back towards the door. We look at all the exits. We monitor so many microtransactions in milliseconds that we're constantly on edge. And our nervous system is so wound tight like a viper that somebody cuts us off in traffic and we shoot at their bumper.
Yeah.
The road rage is real, right?
Yeah, for sure. I've
So-
never done that, but I relate.
Good. Don't. But like, so it's just one of those things that like with us being so coiled up like a cobra that we have no outlet. And then when you throw in everything, like with my situation, everything that definitely is triggering at any given moment, we're volatile. And so where this massage not only helps tank us nervous system wise, which optimally makes us better in our training and everything else, but at the same time, it allows the body to say, hey, this is safe.
Mhm.
And when the body feels safe, when the brain feels safe, the body follows. And
Right.
that's what allows us to truly let go, melt into the floor, and then come out of it like, oh, I just want a nap.
Yeah.
Right.
Well, go ahead.
I was just going to say, I can feel your relief. I want to get into the science behind it, though. Michael, how's it going, brother?
Hey, everything's good over here.
Got to get my bald brother over here. But yeah, let's go over your involvement in the Solvum clinic, and then let's get into like the science and the physiology behind the Traeger approach.
Okay. Yeah, so I was doing a training. So I'm an instructor of the Traeger approach, and was doing a training in Seattle, and Angela was one of the students, and she brought Roberto along. So I had an opportunity to work with them the night before the training. Roberto was having some back pain. Worked on him, seemed to clear it significantly. And from then on, we were connected. And I work at a clinic on the East Coast in Pennsylvania called Newhouse, and have worked with veterans there, and really actually took the Traeger approach and shifted a little bit in the approach to work with hypervigilant nervous systems, et cetera. And through that, we just started to build a relationship. How can we scale this work for the veteran population?
Mm-hmm. That's
And
awesome.
So I flew out, I think it was like 8 months later, which was last August.
Yeah.
And then I've been out here, once a month, every 6 weeks
Yeah,
to
for
just
sure.
build a model that will, hit a couple different vector points.
Yeah. Well, I know we don't have a table in here, but let's paint a picture of like what the Traeger approach is, best of your ability.
Okay. Well, Angela started with, she shared this self-care component. So Dr. Traeger really built the table work component out of his own movement, right? How do I move? Like, who am I when I put my hands on the client, right? I can't give you what I don't have. So, she mentioned it: peace, ease, fluidity, comfort in my own system. And in that way, you become this kind of energetic template, and that helps the client co-regulate, right? Downregulate the nervous system, because you're feeling good in your own body. You don't have protective strategies for your own discomfort. You're feeling free. That lends itself to what Roberto mentioned in terms of, cultivating or creating a container of safety. So the nervous system can start to trust what's happening and get the body to let go. So where does Trager different from massage? It takes place both a standing movement component where clients are taught how to move and invite effortless, free, light movement, pain-free as well. Movement without painful consequence is how a nervous system starts to let go of anticipatory bracing patterns, right? Oh, it's painful when I move over here. It puts a kind of a neuromuscular line in the sand, and all of a sudden, that can build a frozen shoulder, right? So Trager helps unwind that process. Similarly, at the table, the practitioner is using touch and movement in a way to, even though you're using the tissue and the structure, to connect with, all of the movements are directed towards the unconscious mind. Right? Dr. Trager said the mind is what I'm after. For every, I don't know if I can quote him specifically, but for every non-yielding physical expression, there's a psychic counterpart to the exact degree of the physical manifestation, right? Mm-hmm. In so many words. So what this does is Trager goes in and emphasizes the positive, what's intact, okay? What's soft, free, light, rather than emphasizing the discomfort. And that starts to shift the brain map, how the body, it's called cognitive representation, how the body perceives itself and experiences itself. And in that way, when it starts to go, oh, wait, I'm okay, I can move, that feels good, actually, that comfort feels really good. It starts to let go of the old story because you've kind of updated it or brought it into a current understanding of what's really true, rather than experiencing itself through like an artifact or a memory valid at one time that is no longer relevant.
Right.
But the movements are through comfortable ranges of motion. No oils or lotions are used. You can do it with, receive the work with clothes on, which makes it really nice depending on, the trauma backgrounds of various clients. Mm-hmm. And again, it's directed towards the nervous system. I think that's probably the defining piece.
Yeah, for sure. You guys have both worked on me, and you guys are both practitioners. So when you guys have, like you're working on someone on the table, let's say you have their leg, and you're doing these very micro movements, what are you feeling for in that patient, and what are you feeling for in yourself to understand that the process is working? And this is kind of open-ended to both of you guys.
Yeah, no, it's a great question. I mean, one of the things that's really powerful about Trager is that it's not local, right? As soon as I put somebody's, like a leg in my hand, I have their entire mind, right? So it goes beyond me just like, say, working at the ankle. The other thing is understanding tissue structure and connectivity. You can feel through the body, muscular tension in the fascial system or patterns in the musculature. And then we're taught to use our body mechanics to mobilize the body in a way that the client's actually experiencing themselves moving, not the practitioner doing something to them.
Right.
And in that way, they have a felt sense or a feeling experience that pretty much does the work. It's like, oh, wow, I am free. I mean, not saying this is what they're feeling, but the nervous system starts to go, that is free. That is comfortable. Yeah. I feel integrated.
Well, I've felt this. I can explain a little bit from the patient's perspective. Mm-hmm. Angela, you were working on me when I had that neck issue. Mm-hmm. You were moving my left foot or my right foot and just instructing me to let go of my whole body. Yeah. So you really, it's a mental aspect. It's the nervous system. You actually have to do that. But I could feel my neck turn into like a wet noodle. Yeah. So you're like moving, your hands are only on my foot and maybe my calf. Yeah. But my whole body's kind of doing this slight motion. And I felt my neck, I think it was an hour-long session, but over that hour, I stood up and, I was better. Not 100, not healed, but I was definitely had improved. So talk about that a little bit. How would you use one part of the body to work on another part of the body? And how does that affect the nervous system?
I love it. Trager's a listening model. So one of the things that I like to think of it as is I'm listening to your music and I'm playing it back to you. So even if I'm down all the way at your ankle and your foot, I'm listening to where this is reverberating in your body and sending movement through your body that's connected, that allows your body to sense the way that everything is connected within itself. So it's kind of almost like a biofeedback component there. And so if I'm really listening to you and I'm listening to, okay, what is this frequency that is you? And I find that and I move that through my body and I'm mirroring that back to you. You're feeling yourself in this new dynamic, connected way that not everybody tends to feel themselves. It's not impossible to feel yourself in that way, but this work just kind of introduces that component, and that's kind of like a little bit of this jostling component, this movement component to it. And then, just the quality of the touch, it's soft, it's connected.
Talk about that. You blew my mind when you were telling me about that, but we have receptors, and I'll let you sound smart. The receptors in our body when we feel someone else's touch when we're moving, how does that affect us?
So Roberto loves it when I just get all nerdy.
I love it.
We have these receptors. They're called CT afferent neurons. And these receptors are really neat because they respond to 3 different types of touch. It's touch that's and I don't know the exact temperature right off of the top of my head, but it's the temperature of human hands. So it's slightly below that 98.6 degrees Fahrenheit. So the temperature of human hands. Yeah, he just tries to hide it. It responds to light touch and moving touch. So touch that's moderate movement, not fast, not real slow, but it's kind of funny. There was another research thing that came out, just a little rabbit trail, that actually they did discover the perfect speed that the human body likes to be touched at. So there is a preferential speed, and Trager kind of tunes into that. It's really neat. But so these 3 different qualities of touch, and what these receptors do is they go into really deep places in the brain that orient where we're at socially. So human beings are tribal creatures. We're pack creatures. And realistically, if you ever, we have a dog, so if you leave him alone, he'll start howling. But, it's because he feels like his pack has abandoned him. His life is dependent on being with his pack and being close to his pack. And human beings, even though we try to ignore it, are the same way. If we're not connected with our pack, if we don't feel the connection with our pack. This
is where we get into the kind of mental health aspect of this, how just receiving that touch is helping cognitively as well.
Well, I was going to say, we're programmed from birth. I mean, touch is how, before we know we're a thing, touch is how we know the other person. Touch is how we co-regulate, and we're reading off of the presence of, whoever's holding us or in proximity. And that's a big piece of what, again, cultivating that within ourselves that helps the person on the table co-regulate, right, and feel that safety.
Yeah, baby comes out, cut the umbilical cord, give it to mom. Baby stops crying, usually.
I got stuck after smacking. like they smacked me, and then that's just where my life's been until now.
Nice. So, you're still crying.
Yeah, it's our first language.
Yeah, for sure.
That quality of connected touch, and specifically this how are you doing? What do you do when there's somebody that you want to feel that connection with? There's this certain quality of touch that we give them to co-regulate whatever that is. But that allows, if you know that somebody has your back, feel that somebody has your back, then your hypervigilance gets to turn off because you don't always have to be the one looking at every angle.
Mount Carmel Veterans Service Center and the Veterans Voice podcast are partnered with Colorado Computer Support IT Pros to handle all of our computing and technology needs. They're veteran-owned, and they're your team for innovative, collaborative IT services and solutions to enhance and support your Colorado business. Here on the show, we talk a lot about business and entrepreneurship. As businesses grow, it's inevitable that you need to outsource IT services. When that time comes for your business, consider Colorado Computer Support IT Pros. Actually,
another piece too is that Trager's an invitatory process, right? So she mentioned it was a listening model.
Yep.
So the touch and the movement are on the nervous system's terms. So you're not forcing or making a demand, hey, go here, release there. If the body says no, Trager listens and says, oh, it says no for, we don't need to know the exact underpinnings of the protective response or the bracing, but we listen to it, right? And when, how important it is to feel heard.
Mm-hmm.
Right, when you can do that at a level of a nervous system, again, that's where that safety and the trust comes in.
Mm-hmm.
And another piece too with the action at a distance is that if I come in on your neck, your brain goes where my hands are, right? But if your hands are down at the foot, but your intention is at the neck, creating this rhythmic movement allows you to introduce movement. But again, it's just experienced by the person on the table as, oh wow, I am free, I am fluid.
Right.
And that becomes part of the new program.
Yeah.
So, but like, also, I think that's why this is so moving to veterans, right? Because for me, right, 96 jumps, my knees are shot.
Yeah.
After I got blown up, it was my back. I gained weight, so my arches collapsed. And then after that, your body builds these compensators that want to keep you functional.
Yeah.
Safe.
Right? Safe. And then at that point, you now have this compensators that hold you where you need to be so that you can still be functioning. And then even after the problem is structurally fixed, all of a sudden you still hold these compensators.
Yeah,
So like
suboptimal
most
patterns.
yeah. And then, but if you look at it though, one, we're never validated with our issues, right? Because it's like, oh, you hurt yourself. Well, just grab a Red Bull, rub some dirt on it, take some ibuprofen, and get back to work. So we never really get the validation that like, hey, there's something actually wrong here. And then at the same time, there's a deeper aspect that like when Michael was talking about he got to work on me in Seattle, me and Angela flew into Seattle 2 days before and we went up to Canada. When we were in Canada, we were like, hey, where do we want to eat? We started talking to a local and he's like, well, what do you guys like? And he's Indian, right? So he's like, do you like Indian food? And we're like, yeah. And he goes, oh, you got to go here, right? Beautiful restaurant. So we walk in and the moment I walked in, I was back in Iraq. Like my nervous system, the smells, the scents, the people, the everything, I went into fight mode. So we're in the middle of having this meal. It was amazing. And Angela's like, hey, like, you okay? And I was like, yeah, I'm fine. She's like, so like a little while longer, we're like eating dessert or something. And she's like, hey, like, what's going on? And I'm like, nothing. It's delicious. Like, I'm panicking. We get back to the hotel room and like, I lay down in bed and I was like, why do I hurt? She's like, cause you've been in fight mode for the last 2 hours.
Mm-hmm.
Like what's going on? So like unconsciously or subconsciously, my mind said, we're not safe. My body goes into fight mode and locks up, and I'm in this flexed position for multiple hours. And when I come out of it, I'm like, oh, right. And it's the same thing with where veterans are when they get out. They're constantly having to fight the VA. They're having to fight finding employment. They're having to fight, the stigma from society. So like all of these things, nobody knows the better way to like calm down.
Mm-hmm.
So we look for outlets, drugs, alcohol, everything that doesn't help, but it's a temporary band-aid to the situation. So this work not only allows my whole body to just collapse, right? And that's like the best way to put it is the moment that we allow ourselves to collapse, we got to rebuild ourselves the way that we want to. And then two, it really does train on the whole aspect of we could be better after service.
Yeah.
So
yeah, you guys always say at the end of your, clinics, like at least the ones you've done on me, you're like, remember what this feels like and refer to this later. Talk about that a little bit.
So Dr. Trager was really big on recall. In fact, a lot of his self-care movement explorations were using inquiry, phrases, imagery. So what would light feel like? What would fluid feel like? And he would let that inform his explorations, his movement explorations. So just like we can remember things that are stressful, we've all had, those experiences. You can recall things that are pleasurable, that are comfortable. This gets into your epigenetics or neuroplasticity sciences where, mind can drive expressions in the body. Or you could look at even biofeedback where, autogenic training can elicit, consciously driven responses from the autonomic nervous system, right, for lowering blood pressure, lowering heart rate. And we get good at what we practice. I think, it's like brain training, but it's through feeling, right? So what's unique about the Trager approach, because it engages the motor cortex and it's a movement model, is that you have a deeply felt feeling experience that's kind of functional, right? It changes the muscular patterning. So, when you got off the table, you're like, wow, I feel like a noodle. It's like, okay, great. Recall the moments on the table where you felt like the painful leg feeling free because the painful part wasn't emphasized. Right, so now the body gets a completely different or sense of itself, right? So and again, it was no forcing that gave you that free feeling, right? It was the emphasis on an inherent possibility within you just brought back to the surface, right? And then you can elicit those same muscular responses through movement exploration. And that's a big piece of the practice, this idea of recall.
Yeah, what you're saying, like the military kind of wounds you up like a cobra. And then what you're saying, it relaxes you so you're like a wet noodle. Over like, your life, you kind of create the max tension and the most relaxed. I feel like this, because you guys are essentially able to lower that most relaxed state. I don't know if this is making complete sense, but if you start to lower that, I feel like the entire average would come down. Is that kind of what you guys are trying to achieve?
I wouldn't say lower the average per se. I mean, there's purpose for training up,
right?
But you want to maintain access to the downregulation.
Okay.
Right. So if you do shift your range up, all of a sudden downregulation, might be relative, but it might still be out of a window that's functional, at home, kind of a thing. So this work has a great potential for, even with athletes to, when the body goes off, it really goes to a deeply relaxed set point. But it doesn't take away, this piece. It just opens the envelope of resilience.
Yeah.
And I think that's kind of the key. We've had a lot of conversations about how this could be woven into training. Or, we've talked also, I think in the last podcast about, training combat medics, where this would be something that would be part of the training where you're training up, but also bringing this as a quality that's woven into that so that you have access to both.
Yeah. We've said this on a previous episode, kind of what you were saying. The military teaches you how to get, upregulated pretty much your entire career, choose your own adventure. They never tell you how to downregulate. They never tell you how to blow that off in a healthy way. My pitch is that we need to incorporate something like this into basic training.
Yeah. And it's not just, hey, just relax.
Right.
You need to have the feeling state.
Yeah.
Right. Oh, that's what relaxed is. And then that you start to recall.
Right.
But you need to have that pin drop, in your internal GPS and say, oh, there it is. Oh, I do have the capacity for that. Wow, I haven't been there in a long time, right? So for folks that have been trained up but don't have the people that start to receive this, and I've heard this a lot, from the folks coming out of their clinic when I'm in town. It's like, wow, I didn't know that was there. Right? I didn't know I still had that in me. So this work's really profound in reacquainting folks with that, but to actually build it into the training phases, I think would resolve a lot, and also enhance performance optimization and combat readiness somewhere.
Yeah, right. Talk about that fear a little bit, like losing access to the upregulated state.
So one of the things that kind of clarified that for me, and I don't know if it's worth citing, was this research study that I read about in this book called Radical Wholeness by Philip Shepard. And it was this study where they were watching Wall Street stockbrokers, and they started to notice that their bodies would register changes in the stock market before their brains would.
Whoa.
And so they kind of modified the hypothesis of the study a little bit because they theorized that people would do better in the stock market the more connected they were with their bodies. And they used heart rate awareness. The more aware people were of their heartbeat, the better they did in the stock market.
Interesting.
Yeah. So, if we're talking about, microsecond response time needed, you need to be in tune with your body. Your body has to be a safe space for your consciousness to be embodied. The training that you guys receive in the military, it's hardwired into your nervous system.
Yeah.
You can be asleep, and if your spidey senses go off and there's something that need to be responded to, I promise your body will take care of that before your brain even knows what's going on. So you don't ever have to worry about that not being there, that not having your back.
Right.
So
It's
you
still
really
there.
can, bring yourself into the moment and rest when it's time to rest.
Right. So yeah, I just wanted to ask you guys, like you were telling me before we started recording, you have a lot of patients who either are veterans or in the military, but a lot of them are telling you and giving you feedback that if they would have known about this or received this kind of Trager approach massage, because that's what you would call it, right? A massage?
It's not a massage.
Yeah, I wouldn't call it a massage either.
No, it kind of falls into the
It's body work.
Yeah, it's
body work, neuromuscular therapy,
Right.
movement re-education,
But they're-
somatic therapy.
Yeah, they're saying their careers would have been longer. They would have been able to do more for longer. So in an ideal world, Roberto, kick in too. How do we incorporate this into the military? What would the ideal, military Traeger partnership look like?
I'd love to see it woven into, I've had an interest in training combat medics because you're tracking, the team per se, and then you're working with trusted individuals, but having it woven into PT, physical training, for recovery. And then what happens is that as the body has regular experiences of this, it keeps that feeling state or that downregulation familiar, right, and accessible. Okay, and then again, the upregulation or the training's going to be there, and as she articulated was beautiful. Was that the thing is that we actually do better when we're feeling safe in our bodies and connected to our bodies. So, to me, having it woven into training, say in amber status, where you're just receiving regular sessions, then during deployments, right after a deployment, you would receive a session and it would access that feeling state, right? So you could downregulate after the deployment and recalibrate so that your resting muscle tone, the resting nervous system would be at a restorative rate, more deeply restorative. So it wouldn't be so foreign.
Right.
I'd love to see it in the reintegration process coming back from overseas, reintegrating into society.
Mm-hmm. How do you feel about that?
Oh, no. So I know in the reserves, we do the yellow ribbon programs.
Oh, right.
It's reintegration into civilization. They fly you out. They give you, a hotel for you and your family. Kids go do activities. And then you and your spouse or dependents, all just learn love languages, how to be compassionate, how to redistribute, chores, because all those things are gone. For me, though, I had so many soldiers that, we were in Camp Victory and BIOP, and our motor pool was our PT test track. And there was a speed bump that went into a dip. And as we're running at 6 o'clock in the morning, he jumps over the bump and hits this dip and blows out his knee. It wasn't anything crucial, but he was out for 2 months, with this bum knee. So, or how many of us have stumbled on ruck marches and, just all these small injuries that compile or pile up to be this big, massive screwball that we turn out to be at separation.
Yeah.
So if we have regular training to say, hey, my elbow's messing up, my knee, my lower back, anything, and you just be like, oh man, you really need to go and get a massage, right? Or go have that Trager approach done, whatever it is, those things would add to the longevity of careers.
Yeah, for sure.
I would have been able to hit my 20-year mark, but because of my injuries, I declined over and over and over repeatedly until I was like, damn, the only thing that sounds good is, long rope and a wobbly stool.
Yeah, just not moving. It hurts to move.
Yeah.
Totally understand.
No, that's a real problem. And the problem is when you get into that state, it can feel like everything about your existence is pain.
Yeah.
Right. And so what I love about the Trager work is it can introduce the possibility of, oh, maybe I could move. and not feel pain. Maybe I could move even if it's really small and feel good. And it gives the nervous system this idea that maybe I could find that again. Maybe I could make it bigger. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
And it's a nice window of relief when you have what feels like to be endless suffering.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, we're just talking like on a macro scale, deployments, coming home, and then down regulating. So like 6 months, 3 months, 6 months, 3 months. Let's talk like on a micro scale, because I know you pretty passionate about like micro breaks, and Andrew Huberman talks about the 10-second pauses when learning something. Let's talk about this a little bit. Like, how can we implement this down regulating process within our daily routine?
Well, I think normalizing checking in. A lot of times, we'll get super focused, and that's a zone, that's flow, and that can be really powerful, right? That can be very meditative too, and restorative. I think that understanding that taking pauses does allow the body to integrate changes. It allows it to wind down a little bit, and just seeing the impact of that. I mean, everybody's going to find their way, so there's no set, version for everybody or one size fits all. But I think that learning approaches to releasing tension as you're going along and being more attentive and mindful about how you're doing things it's served me. I mean, that's why I'm sitting here in this chair. I mean, I changed the course of my life with the work by changing how I approach things, not what I did per se, but just really looking at the philosophy of movement and how I engaged with my world differently. Invited different muscular responses that were comfortable.
Yeah, I do a lot of meditating, and I'm finding a lot of similarities between meditation and this, but it's like meditation is for the mind, and then this Trager learned relaxation, I'll call it, is for the body. Because just as a patient of yours, I've experienced this, and when I'm doing a meditation, let's say for 30 minutes, I lay down flat on the ground, and I'm able to just breathe and feel every single supporting muscle in my body, in my joints, all the way down to the smallest level just start to relax. It's like my shoulders fall back into place, my hips fall back into place, everything just sits where it needs to be. But I never knew what that felt like until I experienced this. So you have meditation for the mind. Like, I don't know, for me, like going in grocery stores or being in traffic stresses me out. So I'll just sit there and remember how I felt during that meditation last night or this morning. Same thing with Trager. My body's hurting, my knees hurting, my hips are hurting. Okay, I'm just tight. Just relax.
One of my favorite components of Trager, and this has really got me into it because I struggled with a lot of anxiety. I have complex PTSD. And when it came to wrestling my mind, I found that you can't stop thought. You can only redirect it. And one of the best ways to redirect thought is into feeling and into the body. And so just like bringing my attention in and maybe feeling the weight of my hand, or asking questions about, how am I moving? What could be a little bit easier? What could be a little freer? I found that the moment that I integrated my mind into my body and started playing around, my thoughts just shut down. So it wasn't that I needed to, wrestle my mind into submission. I just put it into a more productive state. And
yeah, we're talking about doing this ourselves in a daily practice. Tell me about I don't have the word for it, but that release technique where you have a patient push and then you surprise them by releasing the tension. You know what I'm talking about?
Yeah.
Reflex response.
Because that's something we can do to ourselves.
Yeah.
So let's get into that a little bit.
It's so cool.
Yeah.
So, I mean, I don't know.
Well, no, I'll dovetail on. Can I add one more thing on the mindfulness? So Dr. Trager, actually, when we talk about meditation and movement, he was actually one of the, if you're familiar with transcendental meditation, he was one of the first 8 taught transcendental meditation in the U.S. And what he found was there was no difference between the state that he would get into through his own movements, right, the somatic movement, and then sitting off in a corner doing TM. So what was profound about that, he said, the only difference is that I'm actively engaged with another human being. And this is that kind of state of mind that helps co-regulate the person on the table. Right. But so his movement was a meditation for him, right? That inquiry, and it does exactly that somatic experiencing, right? That allows you to go from thought into being present with sensation.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. Because you are just feeling what the practitioner is feeling. That's what you've been saying this whole time.
Pretty much. We're imparting a feeling state. Yeah.
Okay. I like that. But yeah. What was it called?
Reflex response.
Reflex response. And maybe you guys can like give an example, but this was pretty mind blowing to me.
So it's one of my little favorite things that I like to do. But what reflex response? Oh, well, originally when Michael taught it to me, he said that it creates excitation in the nervous system, and there is a really huge component to that too. But another thing that I've noticed when working with veterans is actually I've noticed that it optimizes firing patterns. So if you have something that has too much recruitment, it can help optimize that. So like, for example, if I was doing it on myself, I might want to target like in my neck or my shoulder. So I might, meet my pressure if I'm pushing into my hand. And my hand is the biofeedback tool. So the moment that I create engagement and I see that I've created engagement, I'm going to pull my hand off. So if I'm working on somebody else, I'll be like, meet my pressure. And then it's this release. So it's this little wrestling match that you're going to win.
Yeah.
Actually. And then I'll come back in. Okay, what does it feel like to do this with half the effort? Mm-hmm. And then I'll pop my hand off. So if I'm doing it on myself, I'll do that to myself. Okay, I've noticed half the effort. Okay, what's half of that? Mm-hmm. And it helps just optimize those recruitment patterns or help with firing patterns that may be not as, what's the word?
Reactive or
organized, right? As we would want them to be.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm imagining like you're pushing on a wall and then the wall disappears.
Yeah.
And then every time it takes half the effort to make the wall disappear, but you don't know when it's going to disappear.
So one of the things that I thought originally when I started playing around with the reflex response, I thought that might kind of engage a little bit of that fight mode and kind of activate the nervous system. I actually noticed that people started falling asleep, which was kind of weird to me. But I guess, what was going on is that people were efforting so much, so constantly to feel what half of that was, to notice that I could use, half of that. Okay, what's half of that? Was kind of life-changing. And all of a sudden when there wasn't that efforting anymore, it was just.
Yeah.
And this is that hypervigilance, right? When you're used to, or pushing through a painful pattern, right? Or a suboptimal recruitment pattern, where you slow it down, you recalibrate. She mentioned earlier, small ranges of motion, right? So it's like somebody might say, oh, when I move my arm, it hurts. But if you start small, it's like, I can move my arm. Mm-hmm. I can move my arm. Oh, and then you build it out.
You can ask yourself now, what does it feel like to sit with half the effort?
Yeah.
Whoa.
And your body might make a few adjustments.
I was pretty tense.
Right?
Yeah.
I'm always
Your
tense.
body answered the question.
Yeah.
So we went out to North Carolina to go pick up a car. My son he was moving from Fort Bragg to JBLM.
Okay.
And so he bought a new car after his deployment. He's like, hey, want to come pick up your car? And I was like, yeah, sure. So we get there and we're driving back. And I remember I was driving, and I've gotten really good with my back injuries about sitting as comfortable as I can. And like Angela's in the passenger seat. We're driving back, and she goes, can you sit softer than that? Like, how would it feel to sit softer? And I was like, or is it possible? Is it possible to sit softer? And I was like, no. Like instantly, right? Because
he likes to fight everything.
I fight
every
everything.
time I make a suggestion.
That's just me. But I'm like, no. And then I notice I'm like, shit.
Yeah.
Like, so like it's crazy how just these small movements, they talk about if you keep your wallet in your back pocket, it raises 2 inches or an inch or whatever it is.
That's a thick wallet, man.
Yeah. and now all of a sudden, it's now you have a compensator.
For sure. But even probably just millimeters would affect your body.
Yeah.
For sure.
Yeah.
So I don't know. I used to have a first sergeant that like he would lay in a chair just having a conversation. And it was because it was the most comfortable way for him.
Yeah.
And I was always like, what are you doing? And like now I'm like, damn.
He was sitting soft.
That's my goal. Yeah,
there you go.
Yeah. So I mean it's crazy.
Yeah. Well, let's hear about the chair a little bit.
The chair, the PEMF chair.
Yeah, what does that stand for?
Okay, it stands for Pulsed Electromagnetic Frequency.
Cool. So
what this chair does, and it can be in a couple different forms. There's several different attachments. So one of them is a chair format. It creates an electromagnetic field like an MRI, and it pulses it on and off. So it causes every cell in your body to involuntarily contract and retract. So it's involuntary cellular workout. And, what that does is it strengthens every cell in your body. So, when I think of stuff going wrong in the body, I come from this standpoint that every cell in your body, everything about your body and your mind is constantly trying to make you the best version of you.
Right.
There's no cell in your body that's against you, even if it doesn't always seem like that. If they are not working optimally for you, it's because they're not getting certain things. And that could be, feedback. It may not have enough awareness of what's going on with your body to optimize. So that's where Trager kind of helps out. It may be building block components like nutrients. You're not getting the nutrients needed. Or it can be electromagnetic deficiencies. So, when you use the PMF machine, you get to strengthen every cell in your body, and that's your eye cells, your brain cells, your bone cells. So TMS is a popular therapy for treating traumatic brain injury, and that stands for transcranial magnetic stimulation, and that's basically PMF that's directed specifically at the brain. Yeah. And there's all kinds of amazing research behind PMF. It's definitely a worthy rabbit hole, and there's more research that I'm excited to see come out about it. But I've seen it do some really cool things, and it's able to treat, parts of the body that I can't necessarily get to easily.
Right. And you guys have one at Solvum Clinic.
Yes.
And you feel as if it's probably been the sole, well, maybe not the sole reason, but it's been a huge part of your recovery.
Well, I mean, so that's the thing though, is what it does for me is it allows me to sleep. When I was doing it consistently, and I mean, I've spent, when we first opened the clinic, it was a little slower. So I'd have nothing but time. So I've spent up to 5 hours a day on this chair. But yeah, so it recharges everything. And like, I like to tell everyone, like, my soul's included in that, because by the time that I get out, I'm like, oh, I feel good. Right. There's a calm, there's a peace, and it's almost like my body knows, okay, we're good to go right now. Right. So like, but at that point, when you look at it though, we have patients that live pretty far away. I mean, and then they go do their full job, their, whatever it is, they come see us. So their day starts at like 4 or 5 o'clock in the morning. And at 9 o'clock at night, they're still in our clinic doing the PMF. And they'll call us and they'll be like, hey, normally I'm fighting sleep on my hour-long drive home. And they call us and they're like, well, it feels like I drank coffee without the jitters. Like I'm wide awake and I feel good. But then they go home, climb into bed, and they fall asleep instantly. So there's so many things. We have patients with multiple surgeries, hardware everywhere. Even what's the back, what they want to do to me.
Oh, the spinal fusion.
Spinal fusions, right? So if there's hardware that takes 2 or 3 vertebrae and puts, fuses them, this machine, the chair, still allows micro movements, which allows lubrication of those joints. So even though they're stabilized, they're fused together, they're still doing it. And I think that's really in part what helped me as much as it did. I had such impactful spinal cord or spinal injury that like it's allowed me to start to get that movement back. And that's why I feel as good as I do 5 years after I was supposed to be in a wheelchair.
Well, your mitochondria actually produce melatonin. And so as we age, our mitochondria tends to get weaker. And so our melatonin production declines. And melatonin is actually a really powerful antioxidant. And there's some theories that could be one of the key components to preventing aging or, slowing down aging is raising melatonin levels. So I haven't seen anything that necessarily measures PMF's impact on melatonin specifically, but I can understand how strengthening those cells enables them to produce more melatonin and improve quality of sleep. FDA is actually approved for bone growth too, so it can increase bone density and improve the rate of bone healing and the quality of bone healing.
Yeah, you want longer careered soldiers.
Right.
Let's make their bones stronger. Man.
Well, and it was kind of crazy though, because you look at like surgeries, when they cut into you, they're ruining those cells. Like they're damaged, they're depleted, they're weak, they're exhausted, they're dead. And a lot of what this does is it allows the cells to recharge. So like for me, who is just a conventional soldier, and a reservist for the end of my career, like now after I use this chair, I feel great. So when I get a chance to like torture Green Berets or Rangers, like they come to the clinic or we're at an event where they're there and they're like, well, what does this do? And I'll turn the chair on full blast. And I'll be like, hey, look, like you're a Green Beret.
It
You're-
doesn't have to be torturous, by the way.
But I'm like, you're like the toughest person I've ever met in my life. Like you're a GB. Come on now. Like I was just a mechanic in the Army. And I have this conversation while I'm jolting around in this chair. And I'm like, but yeah, it's uncomfortable. Yeah, it's kick. But like still, you're a GB. Come on, let me see you try it. And so the moment they sit down, they jump out and they're like, whoa, no, what is going on?
You have them sit down while it's already on full?
Yeah, full blast.
Man,
But that's the thing though, right? It's most people don't want to ever admit, hey, I might not be optimal. Hey, I'm not 100%.
Mhm.
And for us to show that, right? If I could do it, if I could throw any of my kids on it and say they can do this, what's wrong with your cells
Mhm.
that like you need this more? And after time, 10, 15, 20 minutes, they start testing it. And by the end of 30, 40 an hour, right? They're maxed out and they're like, oh, this isn't that bad. Well, no shit. You're now healthy, right? Like you're better than you were an hour ago, 10 minutes ago.
Mhm.
We've never had a patient come in with a migraine or a headache that's left with one. And now it's to the point to where because of our involvement with the VA, because of the great living that we make, we're able to pass this to everyone. We say, hey, bring in your wife, bring in your kids, bring in your coworkers, bring in your friends, bring whoever you want to. The world needs this.
Mhm.
So like we have patients and even my son, if he gets injured, I'm like, okay, you want to still play football, you're going to come use this chair.
Mhm.
You know, my daughter's in volleyball. I'm like, if you really want to be the best you can, go do this. My daughter has scoliosis. So I'm like, okay, your bones need this. Your cells need this. We're going to start moving around a lot of things. Everyone will benefit from the PMF.
And there is no charge for this PMF machine to my veterans that have referrals.
Mhm.
Yeah.
I really want to cover like full spectrum of Solvum. You were telling me about the 1020 protocol is something
Yeah.
you guys have. Tell me what that entails and how you guys can cover every, basis at Solvum.
So the 1020 protocol is something like a full body mind treatment protocol that I've developed for like really wrestling the mind and the body into optimization. So it includes 12 sessions of the Trager approach. It includes 40 sessions of neurofeedback and 40 sessions of PMF. And so it's pretty intense. The PMF and the neurofeedback for the 1020 protocol need to be done at least 3 to 4 times a week. It's like working out. So it's cellular workout and it's brain training. So just like working out, you're not going to get benefits from working out if you go to the gym once a month. So you need to be doing it about as often as you would optimally go to the gym. So 3 to 4 times a week. You could do it every day. You could do it multiple times a day, but the 1020 protocol would have a minimum of that. And then the Trager sessions, at least starting out 2 times a week, and then kind of tapering off from there as the body begins to optimize.
Mhm. And Roberto, you're familiar with the whole VA process. So a veteran could come in, you could help them get the referral, get in the right processes to get these things happening, and then they can take care of them. Tell me about the VA referral process
So that's where it gets fun.
for you, maybe.
Yeah. Oh, well, so that's the thing though, right? It's a struggle.
Yeah.
And for me though, I'm kind of, I don't know, there's like what's the sadistic, masochistic? Which one's the one where I like?
Sadistic. The one you like
Sadistic.
to hurt people.
I like no, myself.
Oh, okay.
So like
Masochistic.
masochistically, I like to turn everything into a game.
Sure.
So when the VA tells me no, it's okay, it's no right now, but how is it a yes tomorrow? So for me, it turned out that originally the VA sent me to acupuncture for my knees,
Mhm.
right? They were like, okay, your knees are kind of jacked. And I was like, all right. So I go to acupuncture for there. The acupuncturist is amazing. And she goes, hey, I'm doing what I can, but you're still in a lot of pain. I think this is a bone problem. She goes, I think you need chiropractic care. So I go back to my primary care physician. I was like, hey, acupuncturist says chiropractor. He's like, all right, cool, we'll throw it in. So he throws in chiropractor for my lower back, knowing that he'll touch everything that needs to be touched. So halfway through chiropractor says, "Oh, I don't think this is a bone problem. I think it's a muscle problem. I'm stacking you. However, you're still falling out of place relatively fast. I think your muscles are putting the bones out of alignment." So I go back to primary care provider and I was like, chiropractor says massage. And he goes, "Well, we're really touching a lot of different things now." And I was like, "But isn't that what we're supposed to do?" He goes, "Well, we need to find the best plan of action for you."
He's saying you're costing us money.
Yeah. So I was
Good.
like, but isn't that what we're supposed to do is find what works? And he was like, "All right, I'll do it." So he puts in massage therapy for my neck, right? Lots of issues. So now I start going through massage therapy and this was originally I started in Pueblo and no, it ended up going really well. Everything was starting to line up. By the time that I was halfway through massage therapy, I was finishing up chiropractic. I'd already exhausted all of my acupuncture. And so I went back to my primary care provider and I was like, "Hey, I feel different. I feel better. I'm more mobile. I'm able to do things. I'm able to play with my kids. I'm able to go to the store and not be in pain. Like I could park in the end of the parking lot and walk there. So I'm doing all these things, making these changes that are monumental." So he goes, "Okay, so massage therapy seems to be working." And then I ran into the first problem. I ran out of massages because the VA will give you 12. After that, the clinic puts in the request for additional services. It goes to community care and through their reevaluation team. If they deem it's okay, then it goes to the VA. The VA reviews all of it and then they approve it, which goes back into a queue list in community care. It's a 3-month turnaround. So I was like, everything that I gained is gone. Now I'm back to pain. I'm back to hurting. I'm back to muscles and bones and everything going wrong. So I went to my primary care provider and I said, "Hey, how do I get more of these?" And he says, "Well, as you run out, they'll put more." And I was like, "Yeah, but like you put in knees for acupuncture, chiropractor for lower back, massage for neck." And he's like, "Yeah." I was like, "How were you able to do that?" He goes, "Well, the VA's guideline is that they will treat each body part with a modality." So that was my in, right? That was my private moment where I'm like, "Ha."
I see. Yeah.
So I was like, "Okay, if the VA will treat each body part with a modality, why can't I do massage therapy for my lower back and massage therapy for my neck?" And he was like, "I hate you." Right? Because it's not wrong.
Yeah.
And so when I talked to him, I was like, "Okay, chiropractor did good. I got one appointment left. He'll stack me, but I want massage therapy for lower back and neck." And he's like, "All right, let's do it." So he submitted the authorizations. Next thing you know, because I'm operations manager of the clinic at this point, I see both of my authorizations come in. And I was like, "Wow, I now have a massage authorization for lower back pain and a massage authorization for neck pain." And I was like, "I wonder how far I could push this." So there is ways, right? There's a lot of ways. Also, behavioral health is another way in. Touch calms the nervous system. So it's good for anxiety, depression. There is your behavioral health therapist could end up putting you in for massage therapy under behavioral health.
Yeah.
So I mean, there's multiple avenues. Now there's the pain management center. So if you've tried, everything under the sun and they're ready to give you narcotics, pain management can give you authorizations for massage therapy. There's a lot of things. It's a simple conversation. I tell everyone you could go through the VA app, secure message, My Health Event, secure message, call the VA and tell them that you need your primary care to get a message, right? So all these things, or if you want to wait, which is not always the smartest thing, because 6 to 8 months before we get in with our primary care providers, you tell them, I need massage, I need massage, I need massage. The VA is like me, to where they like to make it a game and say no. So a lot of times patients will call and say, "Hey, I submitted it, but this is what I got back." And I'm like, "Ooh, let's work on this together. Call me tomorrow and see what they say." And we just keep pushing and pushing you have to be the squeaky wheel in your health,
Right.
especially with the VA.
This is probably the most confusing area of the podcast, the VA.
Yeah.
If anyone has questions, would you mind putting an email out or a phone number?
So Roberto at solvumhealth.com.
Solvum is SOLVUM.
SOLVUM.
Solvumhealth.com.
Or you could call 719-345-5099.
Sweet. And you'll take care of them.
If you call or text and tell them that you came through or you heard me on the Veterans Voice podcast, I'll do everything I can to help.
Sweet.
The biggest thing is, if you're a veteran, you deserve the best care in the world. And the VA cares. A lot of the times they just don't know what's even available for you.
Yeah.
Most primary care providers that I've dealt with didn't even know that massage therapy was an authorization. And that's the problem in itself. So,
well, thanks for sharing all that. That was
Always.
really confusing. The VA, I have this VA series on the podcast. We had a peer support specialist on here, and I'm just trying to debunk VA myths. Like the VA is just this huge, intimidating thing out there that veterans, we can't go there. They don't like us. There's no care. But I disagree. You're a walking, example of that. But you just have to know how to navigate it.
The VA, it's a useful tool after you learn how to utilize it. I mean, even if you have the biggest problems, I'm having suicidal ideation, I'm having suicidal thoughts, intrusive thoughts, they're going to set you up with therapists. They're going to set you up with psychiatrists. Now, don't get me wrong. They're still outdated to where they're going to say, take all these mood stabilizers, take these SSRIs, take these pills, and you'll be okay.
Right.
It's the beginning because that's what the medical system knows.
Sure.
Now that they're saying, okay, we have these integrative health, these complementary services that could be utilized. At that point, I mean, the VA has, yoga classes, pain management, stretching. They pay for gym memberships. So there's so many things that the VA does overall. Inserts for my shoes, pediatrics. Is that pediatric? No, or
Podiatry.
Podiatry.
Yeah.
So,
You're about to get a lot of emails probably.
Cool. I blow
But
me
I
up.
think it's a good point that, whether it's the Trager approach or some of these other integrative modalities, we're leveraging the technology of the body.
Right.
Right. And just really, in the PEMF machine, same kind of a thing. We're activating the healing potential of the human body. And in that way, I think it's a more of an empowerment model.
USAA is celebrating over 100 years of service to our military community. In 1922, it was a group of soldiers that started USAA to insure each other's vehicles when no one else would. Since then, USAA has grown to over 13 million members strong, and through it all, one thing has remained. USAA is still serving the military community and their families. With their launch of Face the Fight Coalition to counter veteran suicide, we are proud to have USAA as a sponsor of the Veterans Voice podcast.
So one of the craziest things is that the VA did a research study on massage therapy's effectiveness for pain management. So they did different things with civilians, one, and it was about how pain reduction levels, there's a certain amount of markers that I have this study at the office, but we found this study that massage therapy barely made the cut to be approved by the VA. What we want to do is run the same study just using the Trager approach to see, because we truly believe that pain management pain levels will go from a 10 to a 4. Prescription dependency will fall off the map. Everything that it touches, we do. And right now, the sad part is Angela's a licensed massage therapist credentialed with the VA who practices the Trager approach as a practitioner. So we could implement the Trager approach. We have deep tissue massage therapists. We have so many different modalities in our clinic that we're able to offer different things. And as a result, we're looking for this new research study to run the same protocols at the exact same places that the VA had used for massage therapy as a modality. So if we could bridge that gap and say We understand massage therapy. Now we understand the Trager approach. And here's the exact same protocol that you ran using the Trager approach. If we could do that, there's no reason why the VA wouldn't want to adapt the Trager approach as a modality.
Is that research you guys are kind of doing, or?
That's
So a couple things with that. Research studies need to be, qualified studies approved by, there's VA's likely got its, criteria for approval. So our initial approach was to do it through, I recommended to go through USOCOM's, POTIF, kind of get into this was the whole idea behind training combat medics, to get them to actually do the research themselves, right? Because they know the protocols, they know their metrics, they know what they're looking for, and they have the research teams, available. In that way, outcomes would be, validated, and it would be easier to have it approved or at least looked at and considered by the VA. In terms of formal studies, there are research labs that are out there that do this kind of work. We're in the process of advocating for funding to propose studies, but it's a complex process, and neither of us are research. I mean, we can collect anecdotal data that might support the interest, in a research study, but we need a little more energy behind it.
How far do you think we could be from that? Because you're saying they've already approved massage for it. How far could we be from Trager?
There's been extensive studies through the Touch Research Institute, which was Tiffany Fields and a program at the University of Miami. I really don't know. There's plenty of studies through the DoD grant portal for looking at alternative approaches to pain. They can, we could apply for those. They require a lot of energy. We're like 3 people. They're running the clinic. I'm teaching this work to massage therapists. So it requires more resources. Again, having opportunities to demonstrate this work to people that might see this as a worthy research project is probably the next step. So I've identified a couple, VA hospital in Tampa where, I'd like to propose this work. It's possible to, I was at the U.S. SOCOM Warrior Care Program conference last year, tabling there, actually demonstrating the work there. The next time would be, another opportunity to introduce people to the work so that some folks that are decision makers could say, hey, this is a thing. In fact, actually, we're all sitting here because it was the responses to this work that, hey, you need to meet this person. And they led us to this person. And then we, connected with Special Forces Foundation. And then we were, I was introduced or invited to the U.S. SOCOM conference. And it was really based on people's experiences that, hey, this is something different. This is really moving a needle different than massage. And that's not to say massage isn't beneficial. It's just that because this engages the nervous system and it elicits a response from inside out, it's this learning process that it goes deeper. Right.
Yeah. Angela, how do you see yourself and your clinic kind of being involved in this moving forward?
That's a good question. I'm not really sure. I think there's this part of me that always wants to, keep these treatments available to veterans. But there's this part of me that wants to see if I could get this into the DoD. I would love to be able to see Trager incorporated throughout active duty. To see a PMF machine at every unit.
For sure. Yeah, I don't want to, get conspiracy on anybody, but there's something about pharmaceutical drugs, right? There's money being made off of them. Do you think this would ever lose traction or maybe not gain traction because it's not a huge moneymaker for anybody? Because this is a more holistic approach. This is a very natural form of medicine. It's movement. It's yourself. You're releasing me from my own tension. Right. Do you foresee that being an obstacle?
I mean, I would imagine that again, I don't know how the decision making is on what gets accepted. Obviously, you want it to be efficacious. Right. Beyond that, I know we can deliver that in demonstratively, et cetera. How things are decided upon is not, I don't know.
Yeah. Sometimes I just wonder, because imagine if we had one of these chairs in every battalion headquarters and we had a practitioner or a practitioner
100%.
in every battalion. Like if we are, keeping our soldiers healthier, happier, more mobile in the near term, and they're going to be healthier long term, I don't know. You'd think if like they wanted that, it would happen,
Well, I don't know. One thing that I have seen with the medical providers, particularly in special forces, is they really are looking for things that work,
right?
And really are looking for real solutions. And they have access to additional funding and the ability to actually implement things that are more efficacious than your traditional doctors in other settings. So I do believe it's possible that it could get into those kind of areas of the military. It might be a while till it's in the rest of the military.
I think you'd find support too from, again, the nonprofit organizations or the benevolent organizations that are, everybody I met at that conference was in earnest looking for solutions still that could really benefit veterans. Yeah. So I think it's going to be some of that outside curiosity and support that drives research, into some innovations,
Well, I know, like for me, after my injury, they gave me Dilaudid, and
just as a prescription to take home.
Yeah,
that's insane.
They're like, here you go, right? And it was one of those things to where I was able to predict almost to the minute when my pain would start to come back. Like I would take a half a pill or a pill and be like, well, I got 3 hours and 47 minutes. And like at that timer, I was like, yeah, there's the pain.
Yeah.
Right. So like, now don't get me wrong. Those carried me through some of the toughest times that I went through.
Yeah.
And so, but also, as great as massage therapy is, and it has its functionality, it has its resources and utilization, but I have fibromyalgia. So random pain flare-ups over going to an Indian restaurant can cause me to have a pain flare-up for a week. And then I don't want to mow the yard. I don't want to take a shower. I don't want to move out of the bed. I'm angry at the kids. So pain in itself, yes, it's this great protector that allows your body to say, nope, we're not doing this. But also pain could be your worst enemy to where you walk out of the room and the kids say good morning and you rip their head off.
You're pissed, yeah.
Yeah, like you're just, it's so like pain,
it could be a precursor to mental health issues because you're just in consistent pain all the time.
And and so like, but other things, right? Like I got diagnosed with pain-associated high blood pressure.
Whoa.
So
yeah, stress response.
I end up going into the dentist, right? I already have white coat syndrome, right? Because there was complex PTSD, so my childhood wasn't great. So I go into the dentist and I see these people and they're like, oh, we're going to check your blood pressure. And like, so I'm already amped up from there. I'm already in fight mode. And now I'm dealing with pain. And they're like, sir, don't move. We have to call an ambulance. I'm like, no, you could just refuse service and let me go.
Yeah.
And they're like, no, we recommend that you go to the hospital. I'm like, no, I've dealt with this my whole life. Right. So yeah, pain associated high blood pressure.
Yeah.
It's crazy what pain actually does. Yeah. So do the pills have a purpose? Yes. Now, will I get addicted to
Dilaudid,
massage? Yes. Yeah, Dilaudid, yes. But will I get addicted to a massage?
Right.
Like,
Maybe.
right? But in the right aspect.
Yeah.
And saying, hey, I need to go take care of myself.
Yeah.
I'd rather jump on the table, let somebody else do the work, and I feel better.
Yeah.
Rather than...
Yeah. This is like a whole pitch we're trying to do on the podcast. I'm just very against pharmaceuticals. I'm very against all the modalities the VA is unfortunately just, here's your 5 veteran with PTSD treatments and just do that until you die. Like that's just it's not a sustainable system. So anything that has to do with holistic approach, getting in tune with you, which is what the Trager approach is. It's you're helping me get in tune with my nervous system, myself, and then relaxing. So that was really my whole idea with bringing you guys on, because you guys are a holistic approach.
Well, I think too, I mean, like nothing's a panacea, but if there's a healthy curiosity, I mean, I would love the invitation to come and I think we all would. It's like, let's explore this. Let's see what's possible, and even allow, the community to drive where it can go. It's like, oh my God, like this applied here, we're coming at it from a clinical sense, but in a live application, I think that there's a lot that, there could be a really good synergy.
Right. I want to ask you guys a question that doesn't have to do with Trager. This is just a life advice. You guys, I admire all of you guys. Michael, you're a musician. You have a huge life outside of this practice. You've started this clinic from the ground up. You were in the military, struggle with suicide. So my question is, the target audience for this is a veteran getting out of the military who has this goal. It's like a 3 to 5 year goal. Like, I'm going to maybe graduate college, or I'm going to work my way up in this company, or I'm going to be a father to my 5-year-old and watch her grow up to be a teenager. But I want to capture this like long-term goal mindset that you guys all have. So tell me about like early days of becoming a musician, and then to today, or early days of practicing, body work to today, or early days of, the vision of this Solvum clinic, and then how you got to it today. And then, the question essentially is, tell me about a time in life when you had a vision that you couldn't see the finish line, but figured out a way to push through, the uncertainty. Yeah, it's a deep one. Think about it.
I feel like that's my whole life.
Yeah, so that's what I'm really trying to capture. There's times in life where the finish line is not clear. It might not even be visible. How do we push forward not knowing what the future is? How do we start these new endeavors of opening a clinic, of being a musician, of being a practitioner? How do we push through that not knowing where the finish line is? Because we don't have all the tools right away.
Do you guys?
No. I got talk at the same time.
I got two. All
right, rock and roll and all.
Let's see. So I remember when I first found out I was having a baby.
Ooh, that's a good one.
So I remember I called my dad, who was I have complex PTSD, tons of childhood trauma. For me, the military felt like home. Everything that sucked, I was like, oh, this is easy, right? So I remember I found out I was going to have a baby. I called my dad and I was like, Dad, she's pregnant. And so he was like, okay. And I was like, I don't know how to be a dad. I don't know what do I do? Like, what do I do? And he goes, well, from this moment forward, as long as you understand that your life is over, you'll be okay. And I was like, that does not help.
Yeah,
like,
great advice.
That is horrible. Like, what do you mean? He says, from this moment forward, every decision that you make is going to affect that child. He says, and as long as you get that, you'll make the right decision.
So your life is over, but it wasn't in a malicious way. It's now our life.
Yeah. So that was 1. 2, after separating from the military, I didn't have anything together until I approached it with curiosity. It was, okay, I'm not who I was. I'm never going to be where I was. What's to look forward to? And for me, that's when I said, okay, no matter what challenges come, I know me and I can overcome them. And if not, I have a community and a support system that could help me with all that. Mm-hmm. So curiosity and realizing my life was over.
Because it's our life.
Because it's our life.
That's beautiful. I like that. What do you guys got?
Go ahead.
All right. Well, I mean, so, had you said I would be a somatic therapist for a lifetime, it wasn't my original trajectory. I mean, I studied finance and international management in college,
Really?
Was into international banking, that kind of a thing. But at age 22 and a half, chronic low back pain, high blood pressure, impressively high, 162/105.
Oh, wow.
Cholesterol 248, and I was like, 20 kilos more than I am now. And I was also allergic to painkillers, muscle relaxers, anesthesias, penicillin, and I was a broken 22-and-a-half-year-old. And I found the Trager approach, right? So May 13th, 1987, I had my first session. So I'm like on a 4-decade trajectory with this.
Wow.
And what that work did was, you had said it earlier, getting to know yourself, finding out it's like, hey, I'm my own issue, and as I got a little more intimate with how I approach things, I was empowered to change things. I mean, the work gave me the feeling, but it was the somatic movement practices that taught me how to change the game. And then, Roberto hit the nail on the head, right? Having a healthy curiosity about what's possible. Right? Dr. Trager was all about inquiry. Well, how could it be? What would it be okay to not know what to do right here, but how to be present with it, right? Like not let the mind run off, but just to stay present with what, whether the sky's falling or, the sun's coming out. So in that way, I think that the Trager approach really prepared me for, a number of different trajectories. I've had similarly a somatic practice, a clinic for a period of time. I've owned a yoga studio, took a leap to do international relief work. So Sri Lanka, South Sudan, Uganda, Kenya. It was in Haiti during the earthquake, which I never saw coming. Right? It's like every phase of my life was like wax on, wax off. It prepared me for the next thing, and I just never saw a lot of that coming. And then coming back around to clinical work, and then getting involved with the veteran community, having been involved in other trauma populations, it all kind of came together. So that's where I've landed here. Music, and this, is that it allows you to process in a different way. Right? And I won't get into my particular past, but the thing is that you can say things without words that come through in music, or you said it in terms of the art of touch, right? That you can really convey deeply complex and meaningful things without words. So music has always been, I've never been without drumsticks. Even though I traveled, there's always sticks in my bag, except this trip. I had to borrow kiddos.
Nice.
But having that piece, it was like the other wing. It was the other stabilizer for a lot of the kind of the caregiving efforts that I've been involved with, career-wide. So I'd say the healthy curiosity, staying with, hey, what is possible for me? And you don't need to know the answer right away, but you need to be open to letting your environment and your intuition continue to inform you.
Angela, how have you continued to have open curiosity throughout your life, which led you to Solvum Clinic?
Yeah.
Right? I think that's my whole life. I think I've just kind of like accidentally stumbled through my life. But I did learn when I transitioned out of burnout in 2020. I was restructuring my life and just following what excited me. So, that started with going to massage school. And then I'm originally from Colorado Springs, and my parents moved to Oklahoma when I was 7. And so I was in Oklahoma at the time when I was going to massage school. And I've been kind of trying to figure out my whole life how to get back to Colorado. And it's a lot harder when you're divorced and you have kids and you've got a lot of things to coordinate. And I remember I had this list of things that I considered to be impossibilities. There was this like check mark list in my little reminders app on my phone. One was move to Colorado, and one was start Solvum, and of course there was the become a massage therapist. And every step of that was absolutely impossible, and it was really weird in 2020, right in the middle of COVID, watching all of it just kind of slip into place. And by 2021. I was living in Colorado, and I slowly moved into the part of Colorado that I wanted to live in. My kids are going to the school that I wanted them to go to. And somehow I stumbled my way into starting this clinic and getting to work with the most amazing population in the whole world. And it all really feels kind of like a dream come true. Now, don't get me wrong, every day still, I don't know what the next day holds and where it's going, but just following my bliss along for the ride.
Yeah.
One more. And I would probably say building a community. For me, at my darkest, when I was alone, that's when I was ready to end everything.
Yeah.
Every day, every patient that comes in, their brother or sister, we've fostered the environment that feels like home. And we now have the camaraderie as veterans that we used to have in service. So anyone that knows me knows that they could call, they could text, they could reach out. I mean, it seems like a daily basis somebody is going through something. Who isn't? But if we could carry that weight together like we're trained to do, we'll never let each other's feet touch the ground. So having that community, it's pretty big.
Yeah, community would probably be the baseline to that curiosity. If you don't have a community to be curious with, it's really difficult sometimes.
Sure.
But I think, it's very hard to get out of the military and then start leaning into new pursuits, new goals. Sometimes it's hard to even make them, and, more often than not, a veteran might slip into a routine. Well, I should just go to college and I should just do this and I should just do that. And then you're the 60, 70-year-old veteran and you're miserable because you never did anything that you were dreaming of. So the best way for me is to, talk to people who are passionate about stuff. They have this path they've been on, whether it's music or Solvum or the military. Hearing other people talk about their path and understanding the emotions they felt along the way and the little, glimpses of hope throughout is the best way to inspire others to do the same, in my opinion. So that was my whole point in asking that, is just hearing you guys get passionate about some stuff. Tell me a little bit more about music while we're talking about passion.
Okay.
A little bit.
Well, I mean, I started playing drums at age 11.
Yeah.
My mom was dating a drummer at the time.
You had hair back then, right?
Hair's overrated, man. Should be on your face.
Right. So no, I started playing drums at 11, and through high school, all the high school bands, things that I had a jazz background, but then got into heavy metal and stuff like that. And then there was the whole new wave, like the 80s, thing, and then grunge, et cetera. And kind of positing between informally writing original material, but then the cover scene was really big, in the area that I was in. Then, I wound up in this vacuum where I made a hard left turn, and then the international relief took me out of the country for a long time. So I stopped playing drums and went off there. But then we had this conversation, I got back into it professionally around 2011, helping to process some deeply emotional, meaningful shifts in life. And it was like, this is not going away. That it really helps, or I think any artistic pursuit, right, that just gets us out of the thinking brain, right? We can get more into abstract or symbolism, or we talked often, about feeling states, right, and how important those are. Music has always taken me to a place inside myself that nothing else does, and then, and then just that process of creation, and I think, another piece too is just, authenticity comes through as well. Like, we all are drawn to a style of music or a song, and, we probably have closet things that we don't want to tell people that we like. Like I'm a closet, country fan or a rock fan or this or that, right? But there is stuff that we know just really hits us, deeply. And I think attending to that level of kind of authentic drive is really healing.
Yeah, I think, music speaks to everyone. Someone might feel it through heavy metal, someone might feel it through country, someone might feel it through EDM. But music is just, like you said, one of those ways we can feel emotion or feel some sort of language without words, and it leaves it up for interpretation. Like, you can hear 100%. one song, I could hear the same song. To you, it's a happy, cheery song. To me, I'm like, man, that's a heartbreak song. To you, it's something else. Music's just such an awesome thing. It's cool. Drums is very impressive, though.
No, I dig it. It's nice to hit things
for sure
and have fun doing so.
Yeah.
So I have my card.
All right.
If you want to, post it on there.
Yeah.
That way, and I encourage anyone that needs to talk, vent. If you want to come try us out, call or text me. It's pretty easy.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, I'll put it in the show notes.
I would also say, I mean, I'm open to invitation. I'll show up anywhere. But I keep showing up here. So you guys are like the, but I would go anywhere so if people are interested or want to, see the work, feel the work, maybe just something to that effect if you want to.
Yeah.
That could be just in the credits, the scroll or whatever. But, I'd really, looking for people to network these ideas.
Yeah.
Would be really helpful, because that's you talk about passion. That's, I'm showing up because I want to see this happen. I'm not a veteran, but I really, like Angela said, it's a very powerful community. It's a beautiful community, and I've, really, it's been an honor for me to work with the community, and I know this work can have a big impact.
Yeah, you see a community with an issue, and this can solve that issue.
Yeah,
or at least help improve it.
So,
or at the very least, go on the United States Trager Association, the USTA.com, see if there's a provider in your area and try it out. Because even though we're based out of Colorado Springs, Michael's based in Easton, Pennsylvania. So and there are Trager practitioners all over the world. So having this, feeling this work, this body work, it's moving. And at the very least, let it tank your nervous system once and see how you feel afterwards.
The Veterans Voice podcast is sponsored in part by Optum and is produced in the Optum Podcast Studio. Optum and Mountain View Medical Group offer 20 clinics throughout the Pikes Peak region. Their primary and specialty care doctors provide quality, patient-centered care backed by Optum's leading health services and technology. They are dedicated to helping our community live healthier while keeping care affordable. Visit optum.com/Colorado today for more information. So I want to wrap up, but I want to spread some awareness about a possible upcoming Trager workshop here at Mount Carmel. I know the dates aren't solidified yet, but we do have some interest in the community here. So, maybe March timeframe we're talking about doing something, but what would a Trager workshop entail?
So the introduction to the Trager, basically the efficacious principles, what's the language of touch that underpins the efficacy of the work. So that workshop would be for veterans and spouses. You don't need a medical background to develop a proficiency in the work. So it'd be an introduction, a hands-on workshop, learning the standing somatic movements, and then some fundamental principles that would help you, explore movement with your partner that could help relieve, muscle pain or invite relaxation. Another version of that would be something that would be specific to combat medics, so it would be a little more technical slant and very specific, more of a polyvagal downregulation protocol for quick, deep relaxation of the muscle groups that are typically activated under stressful conditions.
Cool. And that would kind of just be a Saturday, Sunday type
Saturday, Sunday. The way we're able to host it here at Mount Carmel Center would be an afternoon, 1 o'clock to 6 o'clock, and then the next day, 9 to 5, 9 to 6.
Okay.
And we'll have more information, but it's likely going to be mid-March.
Okay. Yeah, that'd be awesome.
2025.
Yeah, for sure. And that'll be here at Mount Carmel in Colorado Springs.
Yeah, and it'll be free to participants.
Free.
Yeah,
awesome.
At Mount Carmel, it would be for free. So, information will come out, whether through Mount Carmel or potentially through Special Forces Foundation. But you can just let us know about the interest, and we can provide further details as they develop.
Yeah, absolutely.
Or materialize.
Yeah. Well, I want to wrap up here with a story. We usually do a veteran funny story of some sort, but understanding you guys are in a different world, tell me maybe just an inspirational story about one of your patients or clients that you saw go from, maybe rock bottom or a very tough place, and then your work was able to pull them out. And then you can also tell a funny story about one of your 98 airborne jumps or something.
I got it.
All right. What do you guys got?
I have this really wonderful client of mine. He's been a client of mine for a long time. And I remember when we started, he would tell me that I might have been the only person that he spoke to this week, outside of a little bit with his wife. And I remember it was probably after his second or third session, he kind of stumbled out of the room, and I was watching him come down the hallway, and he kind of paused. And I was like, hey, what's going on? You all right over there? He goes, I wasn't expecting to feel this good. And, over time, we talked more as the session started to settle in. And he told me that he was never expecting to ever be able to leave his house again. And now he plays golf. He has fun with his family. He's very talkative, and he gets out now. And he told me that when he first started seeing me, he couldn't have laid on the table face down with his back to the door. And now it's no issue for him.
Wow.
So just to see that hypervigilance go down, that social ability to go up, and his ability to use his body the way that he wants to and needs to have the fullest quality of life is pretty cool.
Yeah. I'm sure that's not your only client like that. I'm
No.
sure there's plenty.
It happens a lot.
Yeah, that's beautiful. Michael, what do you got?
Yeah, similarly, that same type of transformational. I had one person, a veteran, that a real nuanced shift, but the family cat, after many years, finally started to sit on his lap. Like, hey, that lap's an option, because his vibe had really shifted. I mean, all of the, the physical stuff, the pain started to go, the stress started to go. But when the cat picked up on it,
Yeah.
I was just like, that's something to pay attention to.
Yeah, that's a good one. I'm not too familiar with cats, but dogs, super
vigilant.
well,
It's the same kind of,
sure.
They're picking up vibe in different ways.
Yeah.
But seeing that and having him share the story,
Right.
it was just like, it was something that he noticed, because it had been years. And all of a sudden, even the cat started to detect this, deeper, calmer, quieter disposition.
Yeah. Animals don't have language, so they're able to tap into something that I feel like we don't refine enough, and that's like understanding each other's energy. Cats and dogs, definitely, especially like house cats and dogs. Huh.
Yeah.
That's cool though.
That was neat. I mean, but it's beautiful to see, again, when the pain and the dissipates and the peace starts to effervesce, that social engagement can happen, right? And that's a gift to witness.
Yeah, that's like objective examples of it working.
Yeah.
Tell me a story that'll bring me back.
Did you ever tap the water in Iraq and it like turns into a cloud of slush?
Never went to Iraq.
Oh, okay. So, let's see.
This sounds interesting though.
So, there's a lot. All right. So I remember I was in BIOP, Baghdad International Air Force Base or airport, and we're at it's Camp Liberty, and we have our concrete bunkers. So anytime that we have incoming fire, we run to the bunkers. I remember one night there was some unit that was throwing out. They were redecorating their office, the talk, and back then I think I was like a specialist, and so there's like me and I think there's an E5 and a couple other specialists or privates, and we throw this leather couch on top of the concrete bunker. So we all scale it. We're looking at like the plumes of fire that are going over like the walls, and out of nowhere there's this like Denali that pulls up. Some guy's like, "Hey, get down from there," and like we're all airborne and we jump right off. He's like, "The rest of you smartly," and we're like, "Oh damn!" Turned out to be the battalion commander. It was insane. I remember that was my first Article 15. And I say first because there's a few of them.
Yeah.
Let's see. So that was a good one.
That's what was fun about deployments is you just like take what was left over from the last guys, make it your own, build these little forts, these little talks that are made of plywood and whoobies.
So when we went from BDUs to ACUs,
Yeah.
ACUs were our, what was it? They were non-starch. They're no maintenance. Low. So I say low maintenance, right? Because we used to have to burn the tags off. And like back then I was a smoker, so everyone had lighters. Now, my wife at the time would always send me Bics because you can't get Bics overseas. And so I remember we would we would just be standing there and we'd start lighting people on fire. Just the uniform, right?
Yeah.
Like you're like, oh, here's an ass cheek. We're gonna blow. So like out of nowhere, we're in the middle of like a formation and you're like holding a flame to somebody's trousers.
Jeez.
It was so good.
Yeah.
So good.
Hey man, you're on fire.
Yeah. We're like, what the hell's going on? So
How?
I remember
I did it.
we ended up, it was me and like still to this day, one of my best friends, Doherty. And at the time of Sergeant Anderson, we just got off like a 32-hour shift and maintenance, right? So high pace items, whenever the parts come in, we have to get them up within a certain time frame. So I remember we got all of our parts in, and like 6 vehicles had to be up within 24 hours. So like 32 hours later, we're finally done for the day. We're going back and we're just stripping down out of our coveralls. And me and Anderson look at each other. We look at Doherty and we like point to our pocket because those lighters always in your breast pocket. And so we're like, so Doherty, he has his wool socks, right? And we go and we start attacking. The wool shoots up and then Doherty's leg hair catches on fire. Doherty runs outside of the tent and we lock the door.
Nice.
And he's in his boxers. Like we're just, and then so out of nowhere, we start hearing all these poundings at the door and then it stops. And then like 2-3 minutes later, we hear this bang and we're like, oh no. And we're like, so it starts knocking and Anderson was like, who is it? And they're like, Sergeant Major, open this door now. And I was like,
shit.
oh. So I jump in my rack, pretend to be falling asleep. Like and Sergeant Major comes in and just rips Sergeant Anderson. Why is this door locked? He's like, oh, it must have switched like when I slammed it. Just everything. The whole time Doherty's in the background, like he's just doing this dance. And yeah, there's a lot. I mean,
so many stories.
So many stories.
It's hard to, end with the story because then it always turns into like 30 more minutes of stories.
Yeah. Yeah. I took a drill bit to the testicle.
All right, you got to tell it.
So as maintenance, we have, it's called a FRESH, FRS, Forwarding Repair System. It's basically $1 million snap-on toolbox. It is the cool, it goes on top of the PLS, it's transportable, and we could have anything. Welding capabilities, cutting capabilities. It's a full service shop on wheels. So we were having a problem where tools were not being returned. Right. And like that's $1 million that's signed out to someone. Yeah. And so I remember at the time my platoon sergeant was like, Rangel, you're in charge of the FRESH. And I was like, I got you. Right. So I was horrible. People would be like, hey, I need a screwdriver. And I'm like, hey, I need your CAC. And they're like, wait, what? And I'm like, no, you want this screwdriver? You're giving me your common access card. You're giving me your CAC. And they're like, I got your CAC. That's fine. So I remember there's a soldier that came up and we're just standing there. It's like 127 degrees. You look at the sand and you see the lines just going, and he's carrying a bottle of water and I smack it right out of his hand. It goes flying about 10 feet. Right. And he looks at me. He's like, go pick it up. And I was like, no, bitch. Right. I was like, no, bitch. And he's over here. He's like, go get my water. No, bitch. And so he's like, he puts a drill, the drill up to my trousers. And he's like, say it one more time. And I'm like, no, bitch. And he says, zzz. Now he had an actual drill bit. So it catches my trousers and just penetrates.
Oh, shit.
So I'm over here and I'm like, oh my goodness. I was like, what? Just like, I'm panicked. I'm already hot and sweaty. And I'm like, and he's like, oh my gosh, right? And I was like, let go of the drill, let go of the drill. He's like, no, I could do this. I was like, no, you'd let go of the drill. So I throw it in reverse. I start to zip out, right? And then as soon as I start to zip out, I start seeing blood. Yeah. And I was like, oh my goodness, this is not okay. So on the FRESH, there happens to be a first aid kit. And it's a pretty good sized box. So I remember I grabbed the first aid kit. I start waddling to the porta potty, because that's all of our stuff out there. And I go in the porta potty, I drop trousers, and I'm trying to clean this up. Peroxide, rubbing alcohol, trying to tape and bandage, and I'm dripping in this porta potty in 120. It was bad. I walk out, my platoon sergeant's smoking a cigarette, staring at the porta potty. And he looks at me, he just nods like to the office, and I was like, oh no. So we go over to the gazebo, we start smoking, and like I'm trying to hide the first aid kit behind my back. He goes, "Hey, here's our commo guys. They're putting up the antenna for the Sam's box, right? It's what we order parts on."
Mm-hmm.
He's like, "Go ahead and just give him a hand." And I was like, "Yeah, no problem." So I'm starting to take off my blouse and I'm trying to throw it over, and he sees the first aid kit. He's like, what happened? I was like, "Nothing." And he's like, "Why do you have the first aid kit in the porta potty?" And I was like, "No reason." And he starts looking, and there's blood on my trousers. He's like, "What happened?" I was like, no, it's okay. Everything's all right. He's like, "No, what happened?" I was like, "Okay, I'll tell you as long as nobody gets in trouble."
Yeah.
He's like, "What happened?" I was like, promise me nobody gets in trouble. I'll tell you what happened." And he's like, "All right, I promise." I was like, "Hefner put a drill bit through my testicle." And he's like, "What?" And I was like, "Yeah, like we're just playing around. But like, it accidentally caught." And he was like, "Are you okay?" I was like, "Yeah, I'm fine. Like, I think."
Mhm.
And he's like, "Just help them out."
Yeah.
5 minutes later, all I hear is, "Rangel, Hefner, in my office now." Hefner's running like I've never seen a human run that fast across our motor pool, which is extensive. And I'm like, oh. So I start walking this office, and I'm mad. I'm like, "This is bullshit. You promised me. I trusted you. You violated my trust." He's like, "Shut up. Sign this now." It's a counseling statement.
Yeah.
For horseplay in the motor pool.
Oh my God.
So the coolest thing in looking back at it was, if it were to ever came out what happened, I have a counseling statement for horseplay in the motor pool.
That's pretty cool. So do you have like a Lance Armstrong thing going on, or?
No, it's still there. It's
Yeah,
just
okay.
there's definitely a scar. Hair
Yeah.
doesn't grow around it. So I'm like, "Oh, that's my little
That's
bald
a memory.
patch."
That's a veteran story.
Yeah. So whenever you talk about like hair's overrated,
Yeah.
on that spot it is.
I gotcha. That's funny. Well, this has been an awesome conversation, guys. I want to end with this quote again. Art creates a profound connection between the artist and the audience. Through that connection, both can heal. And through this quote and this theme of this podcast, I just want to encourage others to help other people if you don't know where to start on yourself, because, by helping others, you kind of learn a lot about yourself,
100%.
like in the Trager approach. So you guys got any closing comments?
No, I'm just really grateful to have met, all of you, but I mean, it's been just a really incredible journey hanging out with Roberto and Angela. And I think we've got a lot of momentum for some really good potential.
Yeah.
So I'm just super grateful and grateful for the opportunity to hear your music.
Mm-hmm. That was fun.
I appreciate the podcast and the format to have the chat.
Yeah.
So thanks.
Yeah, absolutely. And like I said, I believe in this approach. I'm a holistic medicine guy as a veteran. So whatever I can do to spread awareness and help you guys on your journey to help more, I'll be there. So
Appreciate it.
yeah. Thank you guys for coming on the Veterans Voice.
You bet.
Thank you.
If you are a veteran, I challenge you to try massage therapy. And if you're a veteran in Colorado Springs or surrounding areas, go to Solvum, because there is no other clinic that does what we do.
Yeah. Let's just plug resources real quick. Where's your guys' clinic? Emails? How do you get involved? Express interest?
So Solvum Health is 1902 West Colorado Avenue, Suite 100.
Right in
You
Old
could-
Colorado City.
In Old Colorado City, 19th in Colorado. It's a great day to come get a massage. You go to Rudy's and grab some barbecue. You slice $4.20 pizza. So many things, but come do the chair, get the massage, bring your spouse, bring your kids. We'll make sure that we put all of them through the therapies that they need.
That's awesome.
You could email me at roberto@solvumhealth.com, and then my phone number is 719-345-5099.
Sweet. All right. Thank you, guys. You alive?
Y'all right there?
Parmesan.
Oh, yeah.
I'm lactose intolerant, but I love cheese so much.
Yeah. This will be in the bloopers. We're still recording.
Do it.
Yeah, you're fine. How's the bathroom?
Yeah.
No,
That's a small
It's a
bathroom.
nice bathroom though.